I'm just back from Superbooth, and I thought I would do something a little different, which is put together a sort of impressions and thoughts video, while it's all still fresh in my mind. I saw so much there, it was so intense and so much to take in that it's really hard to distill it down into just a few selected pieces of gear or modules. So don't take this as definitive. This is just kind of the things that were off the top of my head which I really enjoyed playing with and want to dive in a little bit more on. Well, what is it like getting to Superbooth? It's in Berlin every year around May, and we were so lucky this year to have such exceptional weather. The venue itself is a combination of indoors and outdoors. You've got sort of an indoor arena, which is like a kind of an education park, but also you've got outdoor tents. So it has this really lovely festival vibe to it. One of the highlights for me was the Pittsburgh Modular Voltage Lab. Now, one of the things about the Voltage Lab is it's got quite a West Coast style to it. So it's all about wavefolding, and the wavefolder itself has got some really interesting features for sculpting the sound. The other thing I really enjoyed was the way they had sort of built in a sequencer, and the sequencer itself had two lanes. It's very similar to the Make Noise No Control. You've got a gate control lane and then two separate lanes, but a lot of interesting ways you can patch that because you're not fixed into pitch or gate. You could patch them into anything, for example. WMD went away but are now back, and they now have a new performance mixer, which I took a quick look at. William himself talked me through a lot of the features. It looks super powerful. He's added a lot of the requests and things that people have been asking for over time into it. He has a couple of expander modules that go with it. A lot of the components have been upgraded to improve them. So I really think this is one that everybody's going to be very excited about when it does come out. And hopefully, if I can get my hands on one, I'd certainly like to put it through its paces and compare it to some of the other mixers on the market as well. Because I think that's the beautiful thing right now is there's a mixer out there for everybody. One module that I personally liked and found very interesting, but I'm sure is going to be controversial, is the new 4MS Meta module. Not to be confused with the Oxi Meta module, which I'll show you a little bit later. Now, the Meta module is a way of hosting VCVrack patches in a module that's effectively running a small computer, and you have a screen and you can literally see the modules on the screen, and you can see all the lights blinking, and you can turn the knobs just like you were in VCVrack. And I can see why that would be controversial, because it's basically a virtual modular in a module in a modular, and it's like, what are we doing here? But to me, this actually makes sense for a couple of different setups. First of all, if you were building a live performance case and you wanted an end of chain or some sort of end of chain processing effects unit that was unique to your setup, rather than buying 5 or 6 different modules, which takes up a lot of space in a portable setup, you build your VCVrack patch, you load it in, and that's yours. It's predefined for you. It's personalized. It's great. If you want to just set up something small and quick, that's the way to go. I was dubious at first because, after all, there is a lot that can go wrong here in terms of the responsiveness of the user interface, how well it performs, how it sounds. But they did a really good job.
So it's kind of a standalone patch. You can use it like that.
There are a lot of mixers out there, and I'm really interested in the Boredbrain Mixer series. And I call it a series because it's more than just a single mixer itself. They have an expander module. They have an ADAT interface that allows you to send channels in and out to your DAW. So you could use CV tools, for example, in Ableton. They've got a lot of interesting underneath connections, just like I showed with the After-Later mixer in the video I did. You can normal some of these modules together using connections underneath. And so the nice approach here is, rather than build one humongous big mixer for everybody to try and use, it's broken up into modules so you can mix and match as you need. Of course, I had to stop off at my friends Oxi, and Oxi have been busy in the background. They're not just working on the choral, their polyphonic voice. They're not just working on enhancing the Oxi One. They have come out with a new module, and this is the Meta module, not to be confused with the 4MS Meta module I showed earlier. And this is a kind of a 6 HP performance module. I'd almost call it an Octatrack in 6 HP, and I'm almost wondering, did I need to buy an Octatrack after seeing this module? It's got all your classic end-of-chain effects, risers and faders and beat repeats and ratchets. It's got like snare triggers and looping, all those things you would do to build in a performance transition if you're playing live. And it's done really, really well with just a couple of buttons to press and one knob. Very straightforward. I think this was very inventive. And, you know, pair it up with an Oxi Choral like you see in the videos, and you've got yourself a very compelling little performance case that you can take around with you. Moving on, I stopped off at my friend Arjan's, or Ayan's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, his stand for Too Many Synths. Now he makes cases for modular synth. He also made the storage case that I kind of commissioned from him. He's done cases now that integrate the Hapax as well as, say, just a key step with your modules. He has a lovely, I think he called it the Candy Shop line. So he's got all different color cases now. So you're not just limited to black and just wood colors. He's stained them reds and greens and whatever your color scheme is, you can fit it in. And I do love the kind of what I call his furniture line, which is the one with the 4 legs you see here. This looks lovely. This is beautiful. This case, it would belong in your living room if you could get away with putting it there. If we're talking about cases, we need to talk about power. And one of the things that I found very interesting was a new power system from Black Noise Modular. Now, I hadn't heard of them before, so I wanted to stop off. I forgot to get some video though, so forgive me for that, but I did take some pictures here. What they've done is they've built your standard bus board setup, so, you know, fairly standard. We all know what that is. But then they've added ability to provide power input using USB-C power delivery. Now, this is the new USB-C standard that allows for up to 100 watts of power to be delivered over a standard USB cable. And a lot of the battery packs you can buy now, indeed, USB chargers or iPad or iPhone chargers, can now deliver power using PD. Let's take a walk over to the tented area outdoors in the woods. And here we're going to take a look at the Befaco, I'm going to try and pronounce this, Oneiroi? I first saw this module and I was saying Oneiroi, which is an appalling pronunciation, so apologies. It's a Greek word, which was being pronounced by a Spanish guy to an Irish guy, so I don't know who was right here in the end of the day. But anyway, this I think is a really interesting change in direction for Befaco. It's a module that sounds much more at home in sort of an ambient drone case, which it's very different. There's something different about this module, and I was chatting with Manu from Befaco about it, and he agreed. This is kind of a new direction, and I'm really liking what they've done with this. It's got a resonator built in, it's got an oscillator built in. I didn't manage to capture any good audio. It was really noisy at the booth and I was just using my phone. So I think this is one I'm going to get to dig into a bit. It's a big module, but it's got everything you need. It's got a filter in it, it's got a resonator, it's got the oscillator, a lot of controls. Let's take a wander over into the Flame booth. Now, I've been doing a lot of work with Flame over the last year, as you've seen some of my videos on their Fire drum module and the Tact looping trigger sequencer. They've got a new module now, and this is Tone. I have one here to do a video with. This is a 2-track melody sequencer with an interesting proximity sensor here that allows you to use your hands to control melodies and the notes being programmed in, as well as a scale quantizer here. So they had this set up and they were showing it to people. This is going to be available later this year, pretty soon actually, now that I think of it. They also had something that I was really, really interested in, which is a prototype of their new FM synth voice. And this is the KOSMOS. and it's got a 6-operator FM synth. So similar to a DX7, not the exact same as the DX7. That was the first question we were all asking. Can I take my DX7 patches, load them into it? No, not quite. It's not quite the exact same, but it is a 6-operator FM voice, which means you can use the same 32 algorithms you would find in the DX7, which you'd also find in the Volca FM. So if you're familiar with that type of programming, you're going to have a lot of fun with this. So I took a look at the Brainstep sequencer from Tubbutec. The Brainstep is a 4-track trigger sequencer. It's got melody, obviously it's got CV out as well, so you can play oscillators. It's got an arpeggiator in it, MIDI in and out, MIDI to CV conversion. It's got 2 CV outputs per track, so you could be doing both, say, velocity and some sort of an envelope as well as pitch information. One of the modules that was definitely on my list this year was the Ohmicide module from Ohmforce. Well, actually what we're looking at here is there's 111 different types of distortion in this module. It has modeled all sorts of different distortion algorithms. So you're not just doing simple distortion, you're actually picking and choosing the type of distortion you're doing. And indeed, you can sequence between different types of distortion using CV. So you could be really, really generating some interesting tones.
Very classical drive,
I had to say, this is one that I found really interesting. The sound out of it was amazing. Sometimes you come across some really surprising little things, and one of them for me was the Modular Audio Tools MAT 16x8. Now, this was not on my list. I just kind of, it caught my eye as I walked by. It's a 16x8 audio interface that's about the size of a chocolate bar. If you're familiar with a dairy milk, it's about the size of a dairy milk. You could put it in your back pocket and it weighs practically nothing. And the idea with it is it just is powered by your phone. It's class compliant. You plug it into your phone, your iPad, or indeed, if your laptop. It just shows up as a 16-channel audio interface with 8 output channels, and it has USB MIDI to TRS MIDI conversion bidirectionally as well. I was blown away. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And it's about that big. It's tiny. You just pop it in your back pocket and forget about it. It was so light. So I didn't get any video of it because there wasn't really video to get, but I just wanted to show this to you because I love these kind of ideas people have, and they kind of go, look, I've had this idea and no one has done it before, and they show up at the show and everyone's like, wow, why hasn't anyone ever done this before? Okay, let's take a quick look at some other things. Now, like I said, there's so much to go through here, so I'm going to zip through a few things that kind of grab my eye and that I want to play around with, hopefully. One is the Zazou, which I love the name, sequencer from Kaona. Now, you may be familiar with Kaona for the Skippy, which is a 4-track kind of Euclidean step sequencer, but more importantly, it uses this beautiful circular display like like a watch face, and it really, really is delightful to look at. But the idea here is you can build over 4 tracks different sort of melody and chord and arpeggio progression. So it's got quite a lot of ability to generate different type of melodies, keep everything in key within certain chord progressions, and then use that to sequence different oscillators. Another one that I found interesting, and this is a prototype, is Retrokits are taking their classic RK006 MIDI hub and the 008 MIDI looper and recorder, and they're now thinking of putting them into modular format. They had them in prototype form here. I would be personally very interested in this. I could really see using this in my setup. I took a swing by Dannysound. I love Dannysound stuff. I have some of their modules. He does really high quality work here. A lot of it's very analog, very pure. He's got a sequencer, which was really cool and how it could work. He had some harmonic modules as well that could actually change up sounds. Stopped off at Frap Tools. Giovanni was showing how you could use the Fumana as a sort of a vocoder, because after all, KORG announced the Spectravox, so why don't we use some of the modules we already have and try and use them to become a vocoder. Originally, I stopped off to look at his new modules, the Bagai and the 411, which are the new utility modules he had come out with, but he had this really interesting patch set up, so I figured I'd capture a little bit of audio and video from that.
So the moment you start bringing in more signals, you have twice the modulations over the same sound, but also twice the envelope follower outputs joined here.
Alrighty, I stopped off at NANO. Now, I've done a few videos with NANO, as you know, over the last year or two with their various modules. They had two that were interesting. One is the mixer module, which has been out a while now. The mixer module allows for knob recording, and it has a lot of nice kind of basic features that you would want in a 4-track stereo mixer. Great for a small setup, or if you're just beginning and you just need a mixer to begin with. The one that caught my eye though was their new module, which is the ARC. It's a sort of a function slope generator. Think of it as a dual slope generator along the lines of MAT's, bit different in some ways. You can route audio through it as well to kind of do various things with it. So there's something here that I think is quite interesting in their approach to how they put this thing together. We are using it to generate lovely plucky envelopes and things like that. So one to watch as well for the future, and I hopefully can get to play with it. There's just so much to take in at Superbooth, and sometimes it's actually hard to know where to start and what to look at. I was there for the 3 days and I still didn't get my way through everything, and that literally was walking from, you know, the moment it opened at 10 a.m. until about 6 p.m. in the evening, and when my legs fell off, I was walking around talking to people, taking video and taking photographs, and I still barely saw half of what's there. One of the things though that did grab my eye was the Phase 8 acoustic modeling synthesizer. This was a prototype they had showed last year. They had it in a kind of a circus caravan or something. It was very cute how they were doing it. They now have it in a prototype format. There's like little resonators and microphones that are being excited by, you can pluck the little bars there you see on the screen that generates the sound. It's something very different. Not for everyone. I still think they're figuring out a lot of the kinks in it and figuring out how to bring it to market. But I love the fact that they're trying something different. So Polyend have upgraded the tracker software to include 3 synthesizer tracks. You can have synthesizer tracks now. And so I stopped off at the Polyend booth, and Mitch kind of talked me through the new Tracker Plus. So the Tracker Plus is your basic tracker now with the new firmware and hardware. It has the same basic hardware, I think, as the Tracker Mini. So the same software will run on both. And he was kind of showing me the various ways now we can use percussive drum synthesis. That's a whistle-stop tour of of some things I saw, not everything, not even beginning to be everything that was in Superbooth, nor was it everything that I even had a chance to look at, because otherwise we'd be here for a much longer video. But I have to say, Superbooth is just one of those things you have to experience, if even once, if even for one day. It's not your classic trade show. It's more like the most laid-back, chill festival where people just happen to have tons and tons of modular synthesizers and keyboards and regular synthesizers and pro audio gear and wild and wacky things that they cooked up at their kitchen table. There's live performances all day and all night long because, of course, it is Berlin. And so there's no shortage of entertainment at the event itself. It's set in this lovely woodland area, so you're not kind of stuck in this big building, so it's a very chill feel to it. Part of the best thing of it for me personally is just getting to meet people. These are a lot of people we'd probably see in our computers online, in videos we watch or we would chat to on different communities, on Facebook, on Discord, and just getting to meet them in person is always the best part of Superbooth, and grabbing a beer or a burger together and just catching up and talking about what we are all interested in, which is kind of making music with these crazy devices. Okay, I'm going to wrap up there. I think I've been talking for long enough anyway. Why don't you leave me some of your thoughts and comments about what you saw or heard about at Superbooth down in the comments section, and by all means hit subscribe to stay up to date with the latest videos from me. Thanks very much for watching.